Alright, so this is problem 2, and you might have noticed that instead of tangent, it's cotangent. Now, the steps are similar, except there are a few key things that are different. So let's start off with what we know. So this number, 1/2, is the amplitude, and the amplitude is the absolute value of this coefficient. So as we know, the absolute value of positive 1/2 is positive 1/2. Simple. Now, use a better color. We're going to move on to finding the asymptotes, which is different. Last time for tangent, I said that in the parentheses you have to set your values to -π/2 and +π/2. However, for cotangent, you set the values in the parentheses to 0 and pi. The values in the parentheses, as you can see, is very simple. It's just x. So obviously, we just do x equals 0 and x equals pi. So it's very straightforward. These are our asymptotes. All right? And the period, same thing. This is the same thing as tangent. It is pi divided by k. All right? K is the coefficient before x. So we can assume that k is 1. So pi, plug in k, is 1. We simplify and it's pi. So now we have all the parts that'll help us graph this problem. All right, let me rewrite this. So let's get graphing. All right. So our asymptotes are 0 and pi. Our period is pi. And our amplitude is 1/2. All right. So, intervals. As I said before, intervals were the hardest part for me. But I will always stick to these standard numbers unless I have to bisect them even more. Thankfully that these problems don't require that. So we're just going to stick with these numbers. And then we're going to do the negatives now. -π/4. -π/2. -3 pi. 4 and -pi. Okay. So our asymptotes are now 0. So we're just going to draw a line through the y-axis here. All right. And pi. Pi is out here. Right? And our x-intercept is the point in between these two asymptotes. So what's in between these two asymptotes? Pi/2. So our x-intercept is pi/2. And as such, we're just going to draw. I almost made a mistake. Cotangent, it's different. than tangent in terms of how you draw it. In tangent, we fell from the left and rose to the right, but in cotangent, we're falling to the left and to the right. Or excuse me, we're rising to the left and falling to the right. So we are rising to the left and falling to the right. Tangent is falling to the left and rising to the right. Okay? So that is tangent. This is cotangent. All right? Just to make note of that because it can get confusing. But moving on, we're going to find our period. We're just going to double check the period that we found algebraically. So it's 0 plus pi. And what's 0 plus pi? It's pi. So our periods do indeed match up. And that's how you graph a cotangent graph. Check out the final video for our final example.